Imagine trying to understand the human body, maybe picturing those really old, intricate drawings.
Yeah.
Or maybe you see the high-tech scans we have today.
Yeah, it's quite a contrast.
For centuries, people have been driven by this need to map ourselves, you know. And these anatomical atlases, they've been absolutely vital, not just for doctors, but for really understanding what makes us tick.
Definitely, they're foundational.
So today, we're jumping into a pretty fascinating story. It spans almost 200 years, looking at two, well, monumental anatomical atlases. We're going to unpack this 19th century masterpiece, the Complete Atlas of Human Anatomy and Surgery by Bourgery and Jacob.
A huge one.
And then we'll leap forward and sort of contrast it with a modern classic, Frank Netter's Atlas of Human Anatomy, which probably everyone listening has seen.
Oh, absolutely. Netter's iconic. But this isn't just about comparing books, is it?
No, not at all.
In this deep dive, you're going to hear about the sheer ambition, the incredible artistry that went into these, the scientific breakthroughs, of course, but also the human side, the personal struggles behind these massive works.
It's amazing how they really shaped our understanding, isn't it?
Totally. They show how we've tried to visualize what's inside us, and that drive just keeps going.
Okay, so to really get into this, we have to start back in the 19th century with Jean Marc Bourgery. This guy basically dedicated his life to mapping the human body.
He really did. His Complete Atlas of Human Anatomy and Surgery, it was just colossal, published over decades, 1831 to 1854.
And the scale is just mind-boggling. 8 volumes of text.
Yeah, over 2,100 pages, plus the atlas volumes themselves, with 725 plates.
Wow.
Featuring something like 3,750 individual figures. It's just widely seen as the most outstanding work of its kind in the 19th century.
And Bourgery himself had this really strong conviction about anatomy's importance, didn't he?
Oh, absolutely. Almost fanatical, you could say. He had this famous quote, and it's worth hearing again.
Okay.
He said, "Without anatomy, physiology is only a tissue of more or less imaginative tales."
So just stories.
Surgery is without a guide, and medicine is reduced to blind empiricism. Basically, just fumbling in the dark.
That really hits home. He saw anatomy as the absolute bedrock.
Exactly. Not just a subject to learn, but the foundation for all of medicine. He brought this incredible scientific rigor to it.
And his personal story is fascinating, too. He had a brilliant start, right? Won a big award.
Yeah, the Gold Internship Medal in 1819. Really prestigious, but then things took a very unexpected detour.
What happened?
He didn't have enough money. Simple as that, apparently. So this really promising doctor ended up working for years in, get this, copper foundry.
Copper foundry, seriously. From medicine to heavy industry.
Can you imagine working with industrial chemistry? It's a stark contrast for someone who'd become an anatomical legend.
So when did he get back to medicine?
He didn't return to Paris until he was 30. Got his doctorate, published a surgical treatise without illustrations, interestingly, and then he embarked on this atlas, his life's work.
Do you think the time away, that industrial experience, changed his approach?
It's interesting to speculate, isn't it? Maybe it gave him a different kind of resilience, or a real hands-on, no-nonsense view.
Possibly. Because he wasn't just compiling stuff, was he? He was all about original observation.
Totally. He wasn't satisfied with just summarizing what others had done. He deliberately went after aspects of morphology, the body's form and structure that others ignored.
Why did they ignore them?
Because they required, in his words, long and difficult preparations. Basically, really tough, time-consuming dissections that most people just didn't want to do or couldn't do.
So he was pushing the limits, digging deeper, literally.
Meticulously observing, documenting everything firsthand, developing new methods. It was groundbreaking stuff.
But here's the really tough part of his story. Despite building this solid reputation, this fame as an anatomist, he kept failing to get the big academic jobs. University posts, academy memberships. They just didn't happen for him.
It's actually heartbreaking. Imagine pouring your life into something so monumental, revolutionizing the field, and the establishment just keeps shutting the door.
He must have been incredibly frustrated.
He was bitter. In the introduction to his very last volume, he wrote about facing 20 years of loathing, obstacles, intrigues.
Wow.
And he lamented that all his conscientious work leads to nothing, at least in terms of career success and recognition from his peers.
That's rough. And he died young too, right?
Tragically young, only 52 back in 1849, possibly from cholera, right as this massive work was finally being completed by others after his death. So
he never really saw it fully finished and launched.
No. It's a really poignant reminder that Being a pioneer can be a lonely, sometimes thankless path.
But his legacy endured. I mean, anatomical structures are still named after him.
Absolutely, like Bourgery's ligament. So in the end, his contribution was undeniable. It just shows that sometimes the real recognition, the integration into common knowledge, it happens later.
Long after the personal struggle.
Exactly. True scientific merit often wins out, but the innovator might not be around to see it fully bloom. It really highlights the human cost behind these grand scientific projects. Dedication, sacrifice. It's all part of the story.
But Bourgery, even with all his dedication, couldn't have done it alone. The visual side was critical.
Oh, completely. And that's where his collaborator, Nicolas Henri Jacob, comes in. He was the artistic genius.
And not just any artist, right? He studied with a famous painter.
Yeah, Jacques-Louis David, a master of French neoclassical painting. So Jacob had serious artistic chops.
But his real contribution here was more technical, wasn't it, with lithography?
Yes, that was the game changer. Jacob was a pioneer in using lithography for this kind of detailed scientific work. The technique itself was invented a bit earlier, late 18th century, by Sennefelder.
And why was lithography such a big deal?
Well, it was a real revolution, as some called it, because it made reproducing images much easier and, crucially, cheaper than the old methods like engraving on metal or woodcuts. Those were incredibly labor-intensive.
So how did it work, basically?
It's based on a really simple principle. Oil and water don't mix. You draw on a special kind of limestone with a greasy crayon or ink.
Okay.
Then you wet the stone. The water sticks to the parts without grease, and the oily printing ink sticks only to the greasy drawing. Then you press paper onto it.
Clever. And that allowed for more detail.
Yes, much more nuance. You could get these beautiful, subtle shades of gray, which was much harder with engraving. They used this high-quality limestone from Bavaria's Solnhofen limestone.
But there were downsides.
Oh, yeah. The stones were heavy and brittle, and the whole process was still slow and meticulous, just maybe less so than engraving. It was still a craft.
And the partnership between Bourgery and Jacob sounds like it was really special.
It really does. Bourgery didn't just see Jacob as an illustrator doing his bidding. He called him less as an auxiliary and more as a collaborator whose good advice has often been useful for me.
That's high praise. And Jacob drew most of the plates himself.
An incredible number, 512 out of the 725. That's a monumental artistic effort on its own.
They also made some specific choices about what they were drawing, didn't they?
Yeah.
To standardize things.
They did. They aimed to represent an ideal type.
An ideal human.
Sort of. Specifically, a Caucasian male, about 5 feet tall, 33 years old, and possessing, quote, most fortunate proportions.
The 19th century anatomical model.
Light chuckle implied, basically, right? Yeah. The idea was to create a consistent standard for comparison across all the different body systems in the atlas.
Imagine the pressure, drawing that ideal over and over, knowing doctors would be scrutinizing every line.
Absolutely. And then there was the challenge of color.
Right, because lithography started out just black and white.
Initially, yes. So for the early copies, if you wanted color, which is obviously hugely helpful in anatomy, they had to be hand-colored.
And colored, each one.
Yes, often using stencils. A really delicate, painstaking process. Imagine teams of people applying the colors plate by plate, copy by copy.
That sounds incredibly expensive and time-consuming.
It was. It wasn't until later, when chromolithography was developed, printing in multiple colors, that they could produce color plates more efficiently for the second edition. That was patented around 1837.
That must have made a huge difference to the visual impact and maybe the accessibility.
Definitely. And it wasn't just Bourgery and Jacob. There was a whole network of people involved.
Like who? Any interesting characters?
Well, there was Ludwig Moritz Hirschfeld. He was a Polish anatomist who came to Paris around 1836. Apparently, he'd escaped theological studies.
Ran away from becoming a priest.
Seems like it. And he supported himself by playing the violin before becoming Bourgery's preparator, the person who did the dissections.
Wow, what a path.
And Hirschfeld later became quite famous himself, published his own well-regarded atlas on the nervous system. It shows the kind of talent Bourgery attracted.
Anyone else notable?
There was Charlotte Hublier-Jacob. She started as Jacob's student, then became his wife. And importantly, she was one of the very few women working in medical illustration back then. She signed 48 of the plates.
That's amazing for that era.
Yeah.
A female contributor to such a major scientific work.
It really is. Shows that talent could sometimes break through, at least in the artistic realm. But all this effort, all this artistry, it came at a price, right?
You mentioned it was expensive. How expensive?
Okay, so a black and white copy costs 800 francs.
Hard to translate, but sounds like a lot.
It was a considerable amount back then, and if you wanted the hand-colored version, double that, 1,600 francs.
Whoa. So not exactly something your average student could pick up.
No way. It was really only affordable for wealthy individuals or major institutions. That cost definitely limited how widely it could spread initially, a real luxury item in a way.
Incredible. The dedication, the art, the science, the cost, the personal stories. It's just such a rich picture of that 19th century effort.
It really is.
So let's fast forward. How does this monumental, maybe slightly inaccessible 19th century atlas connect to what doctors and students use today? Let's talk about Frank Netter.
Netter, yes. His Atlas of Human Anatomy is probably the most recognized anatomical atlas in the world now. If you've been in medicine or healthcare in the last, 50 years? You know Netter.
He's ubiquitous. But what made his approach so successful, so enduring? It wasn't just that the science was updated, right?
No, there was something special about his illustrations. Netter himself was incredibly prolific. He created over 4,000 illustrations in his career. 4,000.
That's staggering.
But it wasn't just the quantity, it was the quality and I think his unique perspective. He was actually trained as a surgeon before becoming a full-time medical illustrator.
So he had the clinical perspective built in.
Exactly. He had this knack for simplifying really complex anatomy without losing the essential details. He made it visually clear and clinically relevant.
So not just drawing structures, but drawing them in a way that made sense for practice.
Precisely. His illustrations often highlight the relationships between structures, the things that are important for diagnosis or surgical procedures. He bridged that gap between pure anatomy and its application.
And modern editions, like the 4th edition you mentioned, they keep evolving, don't they? It's not just Netter's original drawings anymore.
Right. They integrate new knowledge and technology. The 4th edition has around 548 plates. They still feel like works of art, really beautifully done, but they're logically organized by body region. And crucially, they now include things like MRI and CT scans alongside the illustrations.
So you can see the drawing and then see how it looks on a modern scan.
Exactly. It helps students connect the classic anatomical view with the imaging they'll use every day. Plus, there's often supplementary web material now, too. It's become a whole learning system.
That clinical relevance must be why it's considered so invaluable for tricky areas, like, say, the pelvic floor anatomy or the nervous system.
Absolutely. Those areas are notoriously complex, and Netter's clarity just makes them much more understandable, more intuitive than just reading text descriptions.
So if we step back and connect these two eras, Bourgery and Jacob with their groundbreaking hand-drawn lithographs, and Netter with his clinically focused, now digitally enhanced illustrations, what's the common thread?
Well, despite the huge leap in technology from limestone blocks and hand coloring to digital tablets and MRI correlations, the fundamental mission is exactly the same, isn't it?
Which is?
To visualize the human body clearly and accurately so we can learn about it, understand it, and ultimately treat it effectively. That core drive, that need for a reliable visual map hasn't changed at all.
It's this enduring quest for anatomical knowledge made accessible through visuals.
Precisely. Whether it's a 19th century masterpiece or a 21st century standard, they both serve that same essential purpose.
So we've journeyed from this monumental, almost heroic 19th century effort by Bourgery and Jacob, with all its artistry, its technical hurdles like lithography and those poignant human stories, all the way to the incredibly widespread, tech-savvy atlas of Frank Netter that's a staple today.
It's quite a trajectory. Shows how the tools change, but the goal persists.
It really does. It highlights this constant evolution in how we see and understand ourselves.
And that brings up a really interesting thought, doesn't it, looking forward?
What do you mean?
Well, think about where technology is going now. We've got virtual reality, AI, that can map the body in ways we couldn't even imagine just a few years ago, generating incredibly detailed 3D models from scan data.
Right, the pace of change is accelerating.
So what does that mean for the future atlas? What will the definitive guide to human anatomy look like in another 100 years? Or even 50?
Will it still be recognizable as an atlas? Will there still be a place for that kind of artistic interpretation, like Netter's or even Jacob's?
Or will our understanding become purely data-driven? A stream of algorithms rendering structures on demand is something lost if the art disappears.
That's a fascinating question. That blend of art, science, human skill, and now increasingly, artificial intelligence. How will that continue to shape how we see ourselves?
It's definitely something to ponder. The next chapter in this centuries-long story of visualizing the human body is still being written.